The sky burned with the color of old blood orange and quiet and wide as the silence before a storm. The prairie stretched endless under it, brittle with dry grass and bones too old to remember. A black horse moved slow along the narrow river, its hooves soft on the cracked soil. On its back sat a lone Comanche warrior, face like carved stone, hair tied back with sinew, eyes scanning the wind. Tahu didn't speak, not to the horse, not to the sky. He listened, to the rustle of trees, to the whisper of water dragging itself over stone, and then something shifted, a silence that shouldn't be. Birds took off in a sudden scatter of feathers from the trees ahead. The horse stiffened beneath him. Tahu dismounted in one breath, the kind learned through war and waiting. He left the horse behind and walked through the reeds until he saw it. Until he saw her. She was hanging by her wrists from the gnarled branch of a twisted oak, body limp, toes dragging faint paths in the dirt. A scrap of red cloth blew from her sleeve. Her skin, pale and sunburned, shimmered in the dying light. A wooden sign had been nailed to the tree above her, carved with shaking hands. Blood filling the grooves, Indian land Tahu stood there, breath caught, rage pressing against his ribs like a blade. She wasn't Comanche, she wasn't Kiowa, she wasn't Apache, she was white, young, barely a woman. She'd been left like an offering, or a warning. He stepped closer and saw her chest rise barely, still alive. Her dress had been torn along, the hem, one boot gone. Her blonde hair was matted with sweat and dirt, her lips cracked, bruises like spilled ink on her throat and arms. Her wrists, bound in old leather, were rubbed raw and bleeding. She made no sound, not a cry, not a breath. Tahu pulled his knife free from his belt. He sliced the bindings without a word and caught her as she fell forward like dead weight. He held her as her knees crumpled, carefully lowering her to the dirt. Her head lolled against his chest. Her skin was hot-fevered. He looked once more at the sign. Settlers, maybe vigilantes, maybe worse. This girl had been left here not to die but to speak, without ever saying a word. He wrapped her in his old deerskin coat and carried her to the river bank, where the brush was thick. He made no fire yet. First, he watched, waited, checked for shadows in the tall grass. When he was sure they were alone, he began to gather what she would need to live out by nightfall. A fire glowed low, an orange beneath a rock overhang beside the water. The girl lay wrapped in his coat, her face turned toward the warmth, eyes still closed. Tahu sat across the flames, cross-legged, silent. Then she stirred, a twitch of the hand, a flicker of her brow, then a sudden inhale like drowning lungs desperate. For air. Her eyes opened wide green, wild, terrified. She saw him and tried to scream, but it came out broken and dry. She pushed back, scrambling on hands and heels until her back hit the stone wall. She reached for something that wasn't there, her father's rifle, her mother's hand, her voice. Tahu didn't move. He lifted a gourd of water and set it down, halfway between them, then waited. She watched him like a cornered deer, breathing ragged. She crawled toward the water, each motion pain and struggle. When she drank, the tears came hot and fast. She didn't even know why. Her body hurt in places she couldn't name. Her throat burned. Her heart trembled. When she finished, she looked at him, really looked. Where am I? Tahu didn't speak. Who are you? She asked, voice cracking. Still nothing. She frowned, trembling. Why didn't you leave me? He looked into the fire. The heat danced in his eyes. You were still breathing. He said softly, that means something. She wrapped the coat tight around herself. It smelled like earth, ash, and something old like deer hides left to dry in the sun. Her name was Clara. She didn't tell him that yet, not out loud, but she remembered it. Clara Weston, 15, born in Illinois, daughter of George Weston, land grantee and former Union soldier. She remembered the wagon ride west, her mother sick, coughing red, her father shouting about homesteads and destiny, the endless prairie swallowing everything behind them, and she remembered the men, 4 of them, covered faces, one with a red sash. They stopped the wagon just east. A Fort Calver dragged her screaming from her brother's arms. Her father fought. He was shot. Her mother begged, was silenced. Her world turned black. She remembered being tied, the stench of horses, being dragged through the dark. Then, the tree. I thought I was going to die, she whispered, eyes distant. Tahu's face didn't change. She leaned against the wall. Did you see who left me? No. She pulled her knees to her chest. I don't understand. Why? He looked up at her. Some people forget who they are when they're afraid. They sat in silence. The fire cracked. Clara stared at the sign propped near the fire, taken from the tree, its letters still sharp, still red. She shivered, and then, as if pulling something from the dark, she asked, "What's your name?" Tahu didn't look away from the flames, but he said, "Tahu." She let the name sit in her mouth like something sacred. Then she whispered, "Thank you, Tahu." And for a long time after, the only sound between them was the fire breathing in the wind. The sun was already high when they started moving again, footsteps soft in the dewless dirt. Silence stretched between them like a rope not yet pulled tight. Tahu led, his long strides effortless through brush and stone. Clara stumbled behind him, one arm across her ribs, the other gripping a branch he carved into a walking stick. The prairie had no mercy for the soft or the slow. Briars clawed at her legs. Thornbrush tore through the thin cotton of her dress. Her feet, bare and blistered, bled quietly with each step. She tried not to cry out. Tahu never turned around unless she fell in, even then, only to wait, not to help die by midday. The heat had soaked through her bones. Sweat stung her eyes. Once, she yelped and froze. Rattlesnake, coiled beside a rock, its tongue tasting the air. Tahu turned. In one smooth motion, he lifted a flat stone and brought it down hard. The snake didn't move again. He tossed it into the brush without a word. Later, Clara's knees buckled beneath her. She landed hard on the ground, gasping. Her feet looked shredded, cut, raw, stained with dirt and blood. She bit down on her fist to muffle the scream. Tahu knelt beside her and opened a pouch made from deer hide. He crushed a handful of dark green leaves between his fingers, spat into them, then pressed the paste gently onto the soles of her feet. It burned like fire. She hissed. But he didn't stop. He wrapped the wounds in rabbit fur and tied them with twine. He didn't look her in the eye. That night, they stopped beside a dry creek bed. Tahu walked into the woods. Clara sat beside the dying fire, curled into herself. He returned an hour later with a rabbit, limp and warm in his hand. She watched him work, how he strung a snare from nothing, how quiet his fingers were, how the kill was clean. She watched because she didn't know what else to do. He skinned it, roasted it, ate in silence. When he was done, he set the back leg, still warm, on a flat rock and pushed it toward her. She took it without a word. Later, after she'd eaten, she whispered, "You didn't have to do that." He looked at her, face unreadable. "Neither did you." She didn't know what he meant until hours later, when she woke from a dream of her little brother. He was laughing, running through cornflower fields back home in Illinois, barefoot, chasing the wind. Then the sky went black, flames swallowed the house. She called out. He didn't turn. She woke with a sob lodged in her throat. Tahu was sitting nearby, sharpening a stick to a spear point. She wiped her face. "Do you hate all white people?" He didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, "I hate those who forget we're human." She stared at the fire. "That's fair." They walked most of the next morning without speaking. The silence no longer felt like a wall, more like space to breathe. Round noon, the wind carried a different kind of smell. Smoke, ash, something worse underneath. Tahu's face changed. They followed the scent and came upon a clearing, a burned-out wagon at its center. The wooden wheels were charred black. Smoke still rose in thin tendrils from the canvas. Flies buzzed. Clara stopped. Cold. Bodies. A man, shot in the head. A woman, her dress familiar. She ran forward and dropped to her knees beside the body. No, it was her aunt. Clara turned her over with shaking hands. Her eyes were still open, empty. Clara's scream was silent, lost in her throat. She buried her face in the woman's chest and sobbed until she couldn't breathe. Tahu stood watch, eyes scanning the tree line. He didn't speak until her sobs slowed. "We have to go." "No." Her voice cracked. "We have to bury them. It's not safe. Bandits still close. They were my family." Tahu's tone hardened. "We don't stay." She stood, fist clenched, fury on her face. "You don't get to decide." He met her stare, calm but firm. "They'll kill us both if we wait." Her tears blurred the world, but somewhere in her, something cracked, not from pain but from understanding. She nodded. They moved faster now. Clara's breath came in shallow gasps, her limbs aching, mind heavy. They didn't stop again until the sun bled into the horizon. An old Comanche shelter appeared like a ghost from the grass, half sunken into earth. Roof patched with dry hides and sticks, they crawled inside. Clara sat curled in a corner. She refused the dried meat Tahu laid beside her. He didn't insist, just left it near her feet and sat across the room, back to the door. Hours passed. She picked up the meat. Nibbled. Her voice was barely audible when it came. Thank you. Tahu didn't answer right away. Then, for the first time, his mouth curved just, barely, a quiet smile, like a shadow across his face. She saw it, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. They weren't enemies anymore. They were survivors. The canyon narrowed around them like a throat. Red rock rose high on either side, warm with the breath of the afternoon sun. The wind shifted, and something in Tahu's shoulders changed. He slowed. Eyes narrowed. Clara saw the way he crouched near a bush and touched the snapped branches. Someone had come this way, recently. She tightened her grip on the walking stick he'd carved her. Is it them? She whispered. Tahu didn't answer. He turned, scanned the cliffs, then motioned. For silence. His jaw was locked. Every motion of his body had suddenly become sharper, more deliberate, like a deer just before it bolts. They didn't set up a full camp that night. Instead, they hunkered down beneath an overhang in a narrow sandstone ravine. Tahu covered the fire with sand, letting only the coals glow faint beneath a slab of rock. They both stayed awake, listening. The wind howled between the canyon walls. At some point in the night, Clara dozed off, curled under her blanket. When she woke with a start at dawn, the first thing she saw was a rifle cartridge lying just inches from her blanket. Still warm from the night air. She froze, her breath caught. Someone had been here. Close. By midday, the air was dry as flint, and their boots left little clouds of dust behind them with each step. The canyon widened, giving them no cover. The sense of eyes watching hadn't left Clara since morning. Then it happened. A shot cracked through the silence. The sound echoed like thunder. Down, Tahu yelled, pushing her behind a boulder as two men on horseback charged from a side trail. Bandits, faces half covered, guns drawn. Tahu moved like a shadow, bow in hand, an arrow already notched. The first bandit's hat flew off as the arrow slammed into his shoulder. He screamed, veered, and crashed into the canyon wall. The second man fired wildly. Clara ducked, her ears ringing. She tried to crawl toward a crack in the canyon wall, dragging herself on hands and knees. Another shot, pain, hot and sudden. Her upper arm grazed. She cried out and tumbled into a shallow crevice. Wedging herself tight between stone and brush, she could see everything from there. Tahu fought like something not of this world. He pulled his knife and charged the third attacker, who had crept up on foot, steel clashed against steel. Tahu dodged, kicked, swung low, then caught the man under the ribs. The bandit screamed and fell, but the first rider had returned. Clara saw him from the crevice, gun raised, sighting Tahu's back. Tahu, she screamed, but he didn't hear. Without thinking, Clara grabbed the nearest rock and hurled it. It hit the rider's arm. His aim broke. The shot missed. Tahu spun and buried his knife in the man's side. It was over. The dust began to settle. The smell of blood and smoke clung to the air like a curse. Tahu limped to her, breathing hard. He knelt and examined her arm. The wound wasn't deep, but it bled. She winced as he poured water over it, then chewed up a bitter root and pressed it to the cut. Her body tensed, but she didn't pull away. His hands were warm, gentle. For the first time, she let him touch her without fear. That night, they didn't speak much. Tahu lit a small bundle of sage and held it in his hands until the smoke curled upward into the dark sky. What's that for? Clara asked softly. He looked into the fire, to cleanse fear. She watched the smoke rise like whispers. I used to think I'd be a teacher, she said suddenly. Back east. Before all this, before the wagons and the dust and men with guns. Tahu didn't answer. I like books, she went on, and music. My little brother played fiddle. Badly, but he always smiled when he did. She waited, not sure why she was talking, but needing to. Tahu said, after a moment, I had a wife, a son. Soldiers came in spring, said we were harboring runaways. Took them. He didn't say what happened after that. He didn't have to. Clara stared into the fire, eyes damp. You ever think about going back for them? He looked at her. There is no back. Silence fell again, but this time it was shared. Not empty. At dawn, Clara sat beside him as he sharpened his blade. The edge gleamed in the gold light. Clean. At sharp dot she reached around her neck and unclasped something small, a copper locket. Scratched and dented, but still whole. She placed it in his hand. You saved me. This is all I have. He looked at it for a long time. Then he closed her fingers around it and said, keep it. One day, give it to someone who needs saving. She didn't say anything, but she didn't look away. The sun was just beginning to rise over the hills when Clara saw the smoke. Not from a campfire, but straight columns, uniform and still. Fort Dayton. They were close. Tahoe noticed it too. His steps slowed. Clara felt it before she saw it. Patrol. For mounted soldiers burst out of the trees with rifles drawn. Before Tahoe could raise his hand, the butt of a musket struck the side of his head. He went down hard, face first into the dirt. No, Clara screamed, running toward him. He didn't do anything. He saved me. The nearest soldier grabbed her arm, yanked her back. You're lucky we found you, girl, he said. That savage wouldn't have kept you alive much longer. He kept me alive, she cried. You don't understand. But they weren't listening. They dragged Tahoe like an animal toward the fort. His hair trailed in the dust. His hands, still calloused from fire building and bow carving, were bound behind him like he was a killer dot at the stockade. They separated her from him, inside. Clara was bathed, scrubbed, wrapped in linen. Women clucked their tongues and told her she was brave. Brave for surviving, brave for enduring such horror. She said nothing. Later, a preacher sat across from her, hands folded. You must have been terrified with that redskin, he said softly, as if comforting her. Savages don't know mercy. She looked him dead in the eye. He treated me like a person. You people left me to die. The preacher stiffened. You're confused. You've been through something traumatic. She stood. No, I'm awake. That night, when no one was watching, she knelt beside the bed and pulled up the wooden floorboard. The locket, her last piece of home. Her last piece of herself. She tucked it beneath the slats and covered it again with dust. They wouldn't take that too. 2 days later, Tahoe was put on trial. They called it a hearing, but there was no hearing, no real one. The charges were read: raiding settler land, possession of stolen goods, suspicion of inciting violence. The courtroom was full of men who didn't see a man standing before them, only a symbol of everything they feared. Clara sat quietly at first. Then, when they asked if anyone wished to speak, she stood. She shook, but she spoke. He didn't. Raid, she said. He rescued me. Murmurs rose. He fed me. Gave me water when I couldn't swallow. Carried me when I couldn't walk. He buried my aunt when you said to leave her to rot. The judge raised a hand. Miss Weston, that will be all. No, it won't, she said, louder. He protected me when you wouldn't. The judge banged his gavel. That will be all. And that was it. They set the hanging for the next morning. But the next morning never came. Clara stole a kitchen knife, hid it under her apron, snuck into the stables at midnight where Tahoe was bound in a supply wagon. With iron cuffs on his wrists, Clara, he whispered, not surprised, just tired. She sliced through the cords, used the old keys hanging on the stable wall for the cuffs. He stood slowly, still weak, still bleeding from the blow to his head. They didn't speak again until they were far from the fort, the horse kicking up dirt behind them. By dawn, they reached the river, crossing the same one she'd nearly died beside days ago. Tahoe slowed the horse, then dismounted. They'll come looking, he said. I know. You need to stay hidden. Head east. She stared at him. You don't have anyone left. Why don't you come with me? He looked out toward the trees where the wind whistled through pine needles like voices lost to time. I've seen enough of your world. Her chest tightened. You were the only good man I met out here. He looked at her for a long moment, and though he didn't say it, she knew he believed the same about her. He turned, then back into the trees, into the land that had taken everything from him, yet never taken him. She didn't call after him. Some things weren't meant to be undone. That spring, Clara stood alone on a grassy hill overlooking the valley. The wind played with her hair. In her palm rested the copper locket she had dug out from beneath the floorboards. When she escaped the fort a second time, this time for good, below her, the twisted tree where she'd once hung like a ghost now bloomed with bright green leaves. She touched the bark once, then stepped back. I remember, she whispered. The wind carried it. The screen fades to black. Text appears. This land bore blood long before it bore fences. Some names were erased, but not his. Narrator voiceover. If Clara's story moved you, share it. Subscribe for more tales of forgotten voices, quiet bravery, and the hearts that beat across broken ground.